Hey guys, King17 here. Welcome to the channel where we showcase off-meta and interesting builds at Path of Exile 2 and share them with the community. For today, I have a continuation of the Acolyte of Chayula monk build from last video, and I've made some changes to make it feel overall a lot better. On the mapping side of things, I've swapped out Ice Strike for Whirling Assault, so the experience feels a lot smoother. On the bossing side of things, I made some changes under the hood with some great feedback from the comment section last video, and now we'll be able to triple his snipe output from 5 million to about 15 million. This lets us comfortably take on most of the T3 bosses very quickly, as well as most Citadel bosses in a single burst. So for now, I hope that you're enjoying the montage in the background, and we'll talk about the build overview later in the video. Cheers! Alright guys, welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed the montage. Just as a brief recap for folks not as familiar from the previous video, the core of this build is to lean into Acolyte of Chayula Ascendancy from the monk class and see how chaos damage contributing to elemental ailments can be incorporated as a key build identity as well as leveraged for endgame damage scaling. With the build update, I feel now it is appropriate to give the build a name this time, hence Chayula's Elemental Chaos Champion, as you see on the thumbnail, as we're using all three lineage gem of Toll Stillness, Zoth's Pyre, as well as Xesht Radiance. And by the way, these three lineage gems combined together serves as a much superior alternative to the Unraveling Ascendancy node that Chunk has right now on the tree. Before we dive into what changes were made on the build itself, I want to quickly mention two things. First, a huge thank you to all the comment section suggestions from last video. I was able to kind of refine some of those ideas and use those as the basis in some of the key changes that I made for this build to make essentially the bossing as well as the mapping experience a lot better. Second quick thing is that I do hope the videos on my channel serves as some kind of demonstration that for those of us with limited playtime, myself included as a working gamer dad, the barrier to entry for POE2 in terms of making your build might not be as high as you think. I'm a true believer that games should be fun to play first and foremost. So while the builds on my channel, I'll do my best to make them as efficient and min-max as much as possible, the top priority will always be exploring off-meta jank and or less explored game mechanics as the key fun enablers. So if any of the videos on my channel has pushed you to also try the same, looking at off-meta jank, underexplore POE2 mechanics, or even just kind of remove the quote-unquote compulsion that you have to follow a super meta guide into the endgame, then to me, that's mission accomplished. So that's that. And now we can dive into the build details itself. So first thing first, as usual, when you look at the character sheet, a little bit of a change from last time. We are one level higher, and I made some gear changes such that I have a little bit more strength for the support gems that we have updated. And again, all of that detail is going to be on Mobalytics. So I have 45 strength, 150 dex, and roughly 150 intelligence. And again, dex and the intel requirements are pretty tight, so make sure you have at least about this much fun. For life, 1400, I have a little bit more energy shield than before. Because the leeching mechanic is very strong, the only thing that could kill you are one shots. So you really want to stack as much health pool. So in this case, we're focused on ES. The rest of the numbers here honestly haven't changed a lot. We did take a little bit of a cut of evasion to get this higher energy shield. but I think the overall survivability is still pretty good. No changes of resists or any other notable highlights for the rest of the sheet here. Alright guys, so now we're getting into how the mapping and the bossing aspects of the build works. So first thing first, you'll see that I made a simple flowchart to kind of describe everything, but I still try to keep it comprehensive. So hopefully this acts as a visual learning aid while I'm going through this, or you can just take a screenshot and take a look at it offline. So with that out of the way, first thing I want to emphasize again is that we are looking for quarterstaff with high elemental damage per second. We're not looking for flat fizz. We're not looking for fizz percentage. We're really just preferring actually triple LE prefix as high of a tier, or I guess close to as tier 1 as possible. Additionally, for the rune, I would strongly recommend that you take one of the LE rune that gives you additional flat, as well as the Rune of Agony, which gives you extra chaos damage. So the reason why we're stacking LE instead of physical damage is because, again, we're running Original Sin, which converts all of the elemental damage into chaos damage. Additionally, do know that you want to make sure from the Ascendancy side, you are taking Lucid Dreaming as well as Choice of Power. This lets you pick up random purple flames that spawns in the map and lets you essentially deal extra damage as chaos. So all three components here lets you stack up chaos damage and chaos damage. In terms of the active skills that we're using, we're breaking it into 3 buckets technically, because we want to think about freeze buildup, ignite buildup, and shock buildup as the key idea of the build, essentially. One thing I want to call out is, if you look at the bottom left, I do have a little icon here, which means button press. So wherever you actually do need to press a button, I will note it in the diagram. So for mapping specifically, you have 3 buttons you need to press. So the first button for freeze buildup is Whirling Assault. You've probably seen in the montage, as it's supported by Toll Stillness. So all the chaos that you have gets contributed to freeze buildup. So this lets you essentially freeze enemies pretty easily. Additionally, when you're running Whirling Assault, each full rotation or full duration of the skill hits 6 times. This lets you build up combo pretty easily. And this then essentially lets you click Mantra of Destruction, because this requires 8 combo to click every now and then. Mantra of Destruction is supported by Ailith Chimes. What that means is every time when you click Mantra of Destruction, you are guaranteed 2 power charges. Sometimes 3, so I'm going to say 2+ here, depending on your support gems and your luck, I guess. So with this, then you go ahead and click Charge Staff. Charge Staff is supported by Zoph's Pyre. So once Charge Staff is up, when you're running Whirling Assault, you're going to have these little lightning-looking projectiles that actually contribute to Ignite. So you click these 2 every now and then, but essentially, most of the time, you're only clicking Whirling Assault, and now you have both Freeze and Ignite buildup. Finally, while we're running Whirling Assault, we're freezing everything, so it's very easy to freeze enemies and then shatter them, which means that we can also have Herald of Ice up, which lets us deal extra damage surrounding the enemy that you just shattered. This specific Herald we are supporting with Xesht Radiance, which lets us build up Shock. And that's how we are essentially shocking the enemy string mapping. So that's, in a nutshell, is how you build up Freeze, build up Ignite, and build up Shock. 2 things you want to keep in mind in the passive tree. In addition to stacking increased chaos damage, you also want to take the Stormbreaker notable, as well as the Harness the Elements notable. Again, all of the details in the Mobalytics. But these notables I want to call out because put them together, and assuming you have all 3 ailments stacked on the enemy, you're dealing an increase of 90% damage, which is pretty significant. So all of this together lets us profit at mapping. So now moving on to how bossing works. This is a little bit more involved, but the starting point is the same. Instead of having a quarterstaff, we're now running a bow, but the requirements are the same. You want high LE DPS, you want triple LE prefix preferred. You also want surpassing chance to add for additional arrow to be fired, either in the suffix or the implicit. In terms of rune, you want a rune that gives you additional LE flat, because again, we're running Original Sin, as well as Seske's rune of archery. This lets you fire an additional arrow. So you want to stack the number of arrows that you're firing, because this scales your damage very heavily. For the montage you're seeing, I think I was varying between 2 to 3 arrows. because some of the montages I actually did not have this archery rune. And also keep in mind that this archery rune is a little bit expensive. I think it cost me about 16 div on the standard league, so with the inflation it's probably a bit more expensive. But I just want to call that out. If you are high budget, definitely add this. If you don't have the budget, I think you can get away with not adding this and still have reasonable damage. Outside of that, Original Sin and Lucid Dreaming from Ascendancy is the same as previous. So what starts to change during the bossing is this one right here, Hand of Chayula. So as soon as you start engaging or fighting with the boss, you do want to apply Hand of Chayula, which is slotted with both Despair Curse as well as Freezing Mark, which is supported by Charge Mark, which I'll get to in a sec. So Despair lowers the overall chaos resistance of the boss, which is self-explanatory. Once the boss has Freezing Mark, the freeze buildup on the boss is going to be a lot easier. It's going to build up a lot faster. And also once the boss hits 70% freeze, he freezes completely, so you don't need to build up the last 30% either. So once you apply the hand, you go around and do the same mapping rotation that we talked about previously with 3 buttons, Whirling Assault, Mantra of Destruction, and Charge Staff. So make sure you're doing that because Charge Staff is the only way that you can stack Ignite on the boss, right? So we want to stack triple LE Ailments on the boss. Once you've built up enough freeze on the boss to freeze him entirely, at that point, more or less, you will have ignited him also. And once the boss is frozen, the charge mark of the Hand of Chayula triggers, which then creates a shock around where the boss is, and now the boss is shocked, right? So this is the difference between bossing and mapping, where in the mapping, we're relying on Herald of Ice with Estus Radiance to shock. But for bossing, obviously, if it's a single target, we don't have any mob to die to explode and apply the shock, so we have to apply the shock in a different way, which is, again, via this charge mark interaction. So at this point, this is when you have all 3 triple LE ailments stacked on the boss. Then, automatically, you're going to start generating frenzy charges because you've frozen the boss, and also, because you're running Combat Frenzy as a passive. So once you have frenzy charges, that's when you can cast Barrage. Generally speaking, Barrage will consume frenzy charges to have additional empowerment for the next barrageable skill you're going to use. Sometimes, if you're linking this with Perpetual Charge, sometimes you'll get lucky, so you're going to eat all the frenzy charge to get the bonus, but the charge is going to stay with you. So if you don't have time to look at the top left side of the screen, just click this twice, to get the extra bonus of damage just in case you're lucky, right? After getting the Barrage, that's when you pull off a perfectly timed snipe hit that is also supported with the key Elemental Armament 3, which gives you 30% 6 more damage because you're stacking 3 LE Ailments on the boss. One other thing is that depending on your setup, so mine for example, I am running close combat on the snipe, as well as my quiver has the Amanamu prefix that lets me deal more damage when I'm closer to the target. So you really want to make sure that you're standing next to the boss when you're pulling this off, so that you can squeeze out a little bit more damage. So at this point, it's the same as before. You pull out a perfectly timed snipe, and the boss has the triple ailments, and you still have these 2 notable. And generally speaking, as long as you have about 7 to 8 stacks of Purple Flame from Lucid Dreaming and Choice of Power, you are hovering around 15 million. And that's essentially how everything works in a nutshell. Alright, so with the mapping and the bossing updates out of the way, just a quick word on defense. I've not changed anything significant in terms of defense. We're still doing a hybrid energy shield evasion, kind of a dual defense setup, even though I'm leaning a little bit more into ES this time. And we are still mostly relying on leech. So as another reminder, please make sure that you have at least one of the 2 rain wall, because you're locked with Original Sin for this one. So please make sure that your rain here has both leech for life as well as mana. And recall that we do have this Essentia Sanguius glove, which is a must-have or mandatory to ensure that all of the life leech turns into ES, since your ES pool is a lot larger than life. Last thing is, again, just as a reminder, we also have Void Illusion here. It's a reasonably good clear, especially in simulacrums, but the key purpose of this is actually for both instant mana as well as ES recovery. So the only tricky thing is obviously you gotta put it close enough for the enemy to trigger it, but the other thing is that you gotta make sure that when it explodes, it damages something. So this is mostly relevant, especially in bossing. If you are low on energy shield and you drop something down, if the boss blows it up with a range attack and the explosion does not hit the boss, you're not gonna get the leech. So that's one thing just kind of, to be aware of. We are doing these things to make sure that it damages the boss for you to get the leech back. And that's also kind of why we're, linking close combat here, just for a bit more damage for the leech to be a little bit more efficient. So yeah, I think with everything being said, this kind of, again, takes us to the end of the video here. I do want to say that while this build can clear, I want to say, most of the contents, the only two things that I still have a bit of trouble with is last wave on T3 Simulacrum, as well as the Uber Arbiter. And I think they actually suggest two separate efficiencies for the build. For the Uber Arbiter, I think the key issue is that you have to do so much for the mechanics, especially in phase 2. You don't have enough time to complete a full round of freeze buildup before he flies away or do something else. So one thing is, if you still want to take this build further, I strongly suggest looking into ways to make the freeze buildup better. Low-hanging fruits would be just, kind of getting better gems. For example, let's see, like the blue gem will always have freeze buildup, and you're going to have 2 blue gems here. So maybe, right, for this one, maybe I can get an affix with freeze buildup instead. We are already, building to freeze in weapon set 1 with some of the nodes here. So maybe we can think about where else we can get freeze buildup, because I think there's a cluster here, if I'm not mistaken. Cold damage and thin eyes, as well as some kind of cluster over here. Essentially, and lastly, maybe just get a better weapon. The weapon that I have here is 20 div. It's okay, but you can always get more, and higher damage means faster freeze buildup. For the Simulacrum, unfortunately, your weapon set 2 is not gonna most of the time matter, just because you don't have enough time to just stand there and make a snipe shot before being stunned by something or frozen by something. You really want to make sure you're on the move. So again, the quarterstaff matters here, but the issue with Simulacrum is less about freezing, it's more about recovery. Sometimes you just don't have enough time to drop down that void illusion, for example, to get the full recovery of the ES. And if you're only trying to rely on the suffix here on the ring for leech, you just might not get enough or have it recover quickly enough. So for that, I would actually recommend only for Simulacrum. It feels kind of, jank, but you can probably replace Combat Frenzy with Convalescence, so that you can have, on-demand ES recovery, as well as maybe if you have a quarterstaff with all the great prefixes and the attack skill suffix, maybe, the stun build-up one. I mean, honestly, if I have an Omen of Light, I'd probably change this, but this, if it's leech for life or something like that, it's just going to make you a lot more sustainable over this runs and let you kind of take it down. So those are the 2 more weaknesses that I can think of for now, if you want to take this build even further into the end game. And honestly, those are the 2 last things, like final wave of T3 Simulacrum and Uber Arbiter. Those are the only 2 things that have a little bit of trouble right now. And I'm sure even, if I just get better in terms of gameplay, get good, I can probably beat those. But the investment to try those every time is kind of prohibitive, and I am dirt poor right now. So yeah, that's why I decided to kind of, cut my losses and make the build here. So with all that, out of the way, I, again, really hope you've enjoyed this build showcase so far. And I'll probably take a bit of a break from POE2 until the next fleet drops around, I would imagine, end of April or May. I hope they come up with some new classes. New ascendancies, new synergies, all that. Otherwise, I might consider giving Oracle Chober Chabber another look. My first video on this channel is Chober Chabber, and I made 3 videos out of it. I still love the hell out of that for that weapon, even though it's absolute garbage shit. So yeah, let's see what interesting things they come up with, and what interesting things I could kind of put together, and I think might be worth your time to take a look at, essentially. So yeah, until next time. Cheers.